Cover 3. Spine-chilling stories of sinister relationships that will haunt you forever. In Elmwood, a quiet town that cloaked its secrets beneath a smiling surface, Sarah's life had spiraled from a fragile happiness into a waking nightmare. This night, after her draining shift at Mel's diner, exhaustion sank into her bones as she unlocked her front door. But the familiar clatter faded when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can't hide from your past forever, Sarah." A frigid panic gripped her heart. Who was this? And what did they know? As she closed the door, the shadows in her cozy living room seemed to stretch, reaching for her in the dim light. Daylight hours in Elmwood had always felt safe, each friendly wave from a neighbor wrapped in warm familiarity. Now, just outside her window, she spotted Mr. Jensen, the old man next door, watching. Too keen, too close. His smile twisted into something unsettling under the glow of the street lamp. The world outside began to feel like a haunted cage, pressing in with every grin that no longer felt sincere. The friendly chatter of her regular diner customers echoed in her mind, the comfort of late-night conversations now stripped away. There was a sense of urgency, an undercurrent of dread bubbling beneath the placid interactions. And then Jenna, Sarah's closest confidant, ceased all contact. Now, whispers of her disappearance splashed across the town like a chilling spray of ice water. Anxiety gripped Sarah tightly. Where was Jenna, and why did no one seem to care? Before she could dwell on it, she felt a cold breeze slither through her front door. The creaking wooden steps, once soothing as they shifted over the years, now echoed like death knells. A shiver chased up her spine as she recalled her friendly chats with the sheriff. His dismissive chuckle about petty concerns resonated like a warning horn. No one was taking her anxiety seriously, but what if she was on to something? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to protect Ethan, the light of her life, Sarah felt a surge of instinct to dig deeper. The friendly faces she once found solace in had twisted into something unrecognizable. As shadows danced in the corners of her home, paranoia bloomed like a black flower. Mr. Jensen, too eager for coffee. Was he checking on her? Or was he part of something darker? A web of connections spreading like a twilight fog. The thought chilled her to the bone. With every twilight hour, her heart raced. Fear pooled in her chest as Ethan slept soundly, blissful in his ignorance. Eventually, the dread pushed her out into the dark. The weight of her past no longer just loomed. It threatened to engulf her, and as she slipped out to investigate, the air shifted around her. A figure lingered near the edge of her yard. Just beyond the flickering streetlight, she caught a glimpse. A familiar face watching, waiting. A wave of nausea swept over her. Who could she trust when the shadows whispered her name? Could her life unravel further, dragging her son into a sinister design intertwined with her own? The wind howled through the trees, carrying the scent of wet earth and something else. Something foul, like rotten leaves left to decay. With every step she took toward the shadowy figure, uncertainty wrapped around her like vines, threatening to pull her back into her house. Yet there was no turning back now. She needed answers. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. The figure didn't move, and the silence swallowed her words. She felt a rush of cold air creep down her back, waking something primal inside her. In this moment, instinct took over. She stepped forward, driven by fear and the slimmest thread of resolve. As she drew closer, the familiar face in the darkness came into focus. Jenna. Sarah's heart leaped, relief flooding her veins. What had happened to her friend? Why did she look so unkempt? With wild hair framing her haggard face, Jenna looked more phantom than friend. "Sarah." Jenna's voice was barely a whisper, frail and ragged. "You have to listen to me. They're watching." Panic struck through Sarah as she scanned the shadows behind her friend. "Who's watching?" The question twisted in her throat like a knife. Thoughts flashed in her mind. Could it be Mr. Jensen? Or worse, was it someone from her past? Jenna stepped closer, her eyes wide with a terror that shot warning signals through Sarah's chest. "The town, it's not just the gossip. There's something deep-rooted here. They want to keep us silent. You have to be so careful." Before Sarah could process her words, Jenna's eyes darted over Sarah's shoulder. "Get down!" she screamed, lunging forward. Adrenaline surged through Sarah's body as she dropped to the ground. A car whooshed past, its headlights like knives slicing through the dark. For a moment she thought they were safe, but Jenna's face twisted in fear. "Too late," she gasped, scrambling away. "They don't want you knowing." A sharp crack echoed behind them, and Sarah's heart raced as shadows flitted in the periphery. She caught a glimpse of movement, eyes watching from the corner of the street. Were they the voices behind the sinister messages? "Jenna, wait!" Sarah shouted, but Jenna was already gone, slipping into the crevices of night, disappearing as if she were never there. Panic clawed at Sarah's insides as she struggled to her feet, helpless and confused. Where had Jenna gone? What was she involved in? Her phone buzzed once more, this time pressing against her palm like a cold finger drawing her attention. It was another message. "You're next, Sarah." That was enough to send dread tumbling down the pit of her stomach. She turned to dash back home, but as she sprinted, a voice called out from behind, cutting through the darkness with a chilling clarity. "Don't run, Sarah, your place is here with us." The street seemed to close in, walls of darkness rising around her. She felt trapped, the weight of sinister eyes locked onto her. Glancing back over her shoulder, she could see figures partially illuminated by the moonlight, their shapes twisted and ominous like grotesque marionettes ready to engulf her. Desperation surged and she raced toward her front door. Ethan. She had to get to him. That thought pushed her on, even as the shadows lurked closer behind her, whispering her name like a malevolent lullaby. As she reached her home, Sarah fumbled with the lock, her hands shaking. But the door wouldn't budge. Terror poured through her veins like ice. She could feel the heat of their presence bearing down on her, and what she didn't know was far worse. What if one of them had already slipped inside, waiting in the darkness for her return? With a final frantic shove, the door burst open. Darkness spilled out of the house, welcoming her but also closing in. She stepped inside, breathless, her heart pounding, only to hear a familiar child's laughter echo through the hall. Ethan. But then, silence fell like a brick. The air thickened as she felt a prickle travel down her spine. Something was off. Ethan. The silence lingered, heavy, oppressive, and then she heard it, a creaking from the hallway, the unmistakable sound of footsteps moving closer. What had she brought into her home? The footsteps stopped, hanging in the still air like a suspended breath. Sarah's heart thudded violently in her chest. The laughter had faded, leaving behind a silence that threatened to suffocate her. She peered into the darkened hallway, scanning every shadow. All was still, but the air felt alive with something waiting. "Ethan," she called again, her voice breaking. She knew she shouldn't have come into the house without checking. A chill skittered down her spine as she stepped deeper inside, the door creaking ominously behind her. That very action felt like a signal, as if she'd invited whatever was lurking to make itself known. She moved cautiously, every creak of the floor beneath her heavy footsteps echoing in the gloom. A faint light flickered from the kitchen, just enough to cast long, twisted shadows on the walls. She swallowed hard, that gnawing fear gnashing viciously at her mind. Was Ethan safe? As she crept toward the kitchen, the feeling of being watched intensified. Goosebumps erupted on her skin, and instinct told her to turn back. But what if Ethan was in trouble? What if whatever was lurking in the shadows had already taken him? Sarah steadied her breath and forced herself to walk forward. The kitchen was unnaturally quiet as she pushed the door open, the hinges squealing in protest. She blinked against the dim light, eyes darting around the room. And then she saw it. A small figure standing at the window, staring outside. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice cracking. Her heart leaped into her throat, and she rushed forward, feeling hope flicker to life. But as she neared, the figure remained still, the back facing her. It felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. "Ethan," she repeated, now with an edge of panic. She hesitated, dread gnawing moments away like time standing still. Then, just as she was about to reach out, the figure turned slowly and her breath caught. It wasn't Ethan. It was a child, eyes hollow, face pale, looking as if they had just emerged from some hours of torment. "Help me," the child whispered, voice thin and stretched like something barely clinging to life. Her heart raced as she looked deeper into those hollow eyes. Behind them, shadows lurked, swirling like dark smoke. "What happened to you?" she managed to ask, her own voice flaring with dread. The child pointed toward the hallway. "They won't let me leave." Sarah's heart dropped, realization crashing down on her. She needed to get out of the house. It wasn't just her safety at stake anymore. She couldn't let this spirit linger. Then she heard it again, the low creak of footsteps, heavier now, echoing down the hallway. A sickening blend of fear and urgency gripped at her throat. She turned back to the window, teeth biting down on her lower lip. "Who?" she asked the child, breathless, as a darker shadow moved just at the edge of her vision. "Don't look," it whispered, voice trembling as it began to fade, merging once again into the gloom that filled the room. Sarah's mind raced. She knew she had to escape while there was still time, and yet something compelled her to look. Her muscles tightened, fear clawing at her from all sides. This house was a trap, and terrible things were waiting just beyond the veil of darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, she turned on her heel, sprinting toward the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it, locking her in. Panic enveloped her, and the memories of the night came rushing back. The shadowy figures outside, Jenna's frantic warning, the creepy messages, and now this. "Get out!" screamed the child from the corners of her mind, just before it vanished completely. But the shadows were closing in, darkness thickening around her, and she could feel the stale breath of whatever hunted her against the nape of her neck. Sarah was out of options. She had to confront what was in the house with her, or risk being consumed by it. Then came an echo from the hallway, clear as day, a low growl. "Sarah, you belong to us now." What would she choose? Fight or flight? Heart hammering in her chest, she stood frozen, destined to find out what awaited her in the darkness. The growl reverberated through Sarah's bones, a chilling sound that wrapped around her like a vice. She felt the walls closing in, pressing against her skin, suffocating her. The very air seemed thick with dark intentions. "Fight or flight," she whispered, almost as if trying to remind herself. The words tasted bitter, a cruel taunt echoing in the sinister silence. Equipped with only her instincts, she turned to the kitchen drawers. Maybe a knife or something. Desperate fingers skittered across the surfaces, but they were empty, hollow, a ghost of their former purpose. A dread washed over her, seizing her heart in a grip of terror. There was nothing here that could protect her. The growl came again, louder this time. A predator's growl. She felt the presence growing stronger, moving closer. "You're not alone," it seemed to whisper, mingling with her own panic to create a symphony of anxiety. "I need to get out. I need to get out." The mantra fell from her lips, breathless and frantic, but the door wouldn't budge. She pounded against it, desperation fueling her efforts. Something inside whispered that it was useless, that the spirits here enjoyed watching her struggle. She backed away slowly, finding a momentary sense of calm as she faced the shadowy hallway. "Where are you?" she shouted, the bravado a mask over the visceral fear coursing through her veins. The shadows stirred, as if answering her challenge, swirling around like smoke as they closed in. "Don't look," the child's voice echoed softly in her mind, a haunting reminder of the last warning. And yet, her attention was drawn down the hallway. Flickering lights danced teasingly, beckoning her to enter. Curiosity gnawed at her, fighting against the primal urge to run. Suddenly she caught a glimpse of something moving in the dark. A figure, tall and thin, its outline slipping just beyond the edge of the dim light. It turned slowly, a malevolent grin spreading wide, revealing void-like shadows where eyes should have been. The growl transformed into a low, chilling laugh that filled the house. "Sarah," it crooned, a voice coated in honey yet edged with malice. "Stay with us." Her heart pounded wildly as she lurched backward, frantically darting into the kitchen. She needed to think, but thoughts slipped away, drowning in panic. The child, the laughter, that voice, all of it meshed into a waking nightmare. She felt a sudden surge of resolve. She wouldn't die here, not like this. Then she remembered the back door. She sprinted toward it, her footsteps echoing loudly as she crossed the threshold from the kitchen into the hallway. Halfway there, she stopped, sensing something shifting. In a flash of instinct, she turned back. The figure was gone. Relief came, but it was short-lived. A surge of cold air rushed past her, sending shivers along her spine. The child's face reappeared in her mind, hollow and pleading. "Help me," it echoed, spiraling into her consciousness, pulling her back towards the kitchen. The door at the end of the hallway creaked open, as if inviting her to step through. Heart racing, she leaned into the shadows, not knowing if it was safety or a deeper darkness. Would she find Ethan, an escape? Or would it lead her straight into the clutches of whatever resided within? It could be all too easy to succumb to the darkness. Just let it swallow her whole. But Sarah felt something fighting back. Something inside her screamed for survival. The air shifted, thickening again. The shadows coalesced, forming into another sinister presence. "Come play with us." A chorus of whispers filled the air, a chilling invitation that sent terror rocketing through her. "No!" she exclaimed, clenching her fists. With newfound determination, she turned to the door at the end of the hallway, knowing that whatever lay behind it was a choice she had to make. Would there be a way out, or another trap waiting to ensnare her? As her hand reached for the knob, the temperature dropped, an icy breath washing over her. Sarah. They were close now. So very close. The moment stretched out, pregnant with suspense, as she pushed the door open. What awaited her on the other side? A scream echoed down the hallway. Was it Ethan? Did she dare to hope? With the figure drawing near behind her, Sarah stepped through the door, into the unknown. The door swung open with a groan that seemed to echo through the very fabric of the house. Darkness rushed to greet her, swirling in thick tendrils, eager to envelop Sarah. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside, the sensation of crossing a threshold igniting every nerve in her body. The room was small and barren, illuminated only by the flickering light of a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, sputtering as if trying to escape. The air was stagnant, smelling of damp wood and something far more sinister, a scent like burning flesh. Her instinct screamed at her to turn back, to flee into the hallway filled with shadows, but she forced herself to stay. If Ethan was here, she needed to find him. "Ethan," she called, her voice trembling. The silence that followed was oppressive. Suddenly the bulb flickered more violently, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls, strange shapes shifting and stretching as though alive. That chilling laugh echoed again, now ringing from within the room. "Playtime, Sarah," it whispered, dripping with mockery. A cold shiver rolled down her spine. Frantically, she searched the corners of the room. There had to be something. A clue. A sign. Her eyes darted to the far wall, where something glimmered in the dim light. She stepped closer, heart hammering in her chest, and froze. What she saw stole her breath away. A small wooden box, intricately carved, nestled against the wall as if waiting for her. It looked ancient, the surface stained and worn, yet it radiated a peculiar warmth, contrasting against the icy chill of the room. Was this a trap? "Open it," the voice urged again, this time softer, almost sweet. "You'll see." She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder at the door behind her, then back at the box. Every instinct told her to leave this cursed place, but her pulse quickened with the need to know. Steeling herself, she reached for the box, the wood smooth against her fingertips. As she pulled it toward her, the laughter erupted once more, mingling with faint whispers that coiled around her. "Don't trust it," she shouted, as if the words could silence the cacophony. With a quick flick, she opened the box. Inside lay a collection of old photographs, faded images of children, their faces distorted in shadows, eyes wide with terror. At the bottom of the box, a single image caught her attention. It was of Ethan, his small frame lost among the other children. "Ethan!" she cried, feeling the tears prick her eyes. But her joy was short-lived. The laughter turned into a bone-chilling scream, an anguished wail that rattled the walls and sent her stumbling back. The shadows around her thickened, rolling against her like a living entity, pressing in from all sides. "No, no!" Sarah shouted, panic seizing her. She scrambled to close the box, desperate to escape its horrors. But the dark figures began to swirl around her, their cold breaths grazing her skin. "Join us!" they chanted in unison, their voices rising and falling like waves crashing against a shore, relentless and deafening. The shadows reached for her, clawing with icy fingers that pulled at her resolve. In a rush of adrenaline, she slammed the box shut, a flicker of defiance igniting within. "Leave me alone!" she screamed. At her words, the figures hesitated, silent for just a heartbeat. Then, like a dam breaking, they surged forward, the room flooding with darkness. Her mind raced. She couldn't stay here. This was no sanctuary, it was a tomb. With every ounce of strength, she tore herself from the clutches of shadows and lunged for the door, wrenching it open. Every second felt like a lifetime as she sprinted into the hallway, the echo of the wailing laughter trailing behind her, getting closer, louder. But then she stopped, heart thudding in her chest. At the end of the hall, a flicker of light caught her eye. Another door stood ajar, bright and warm, its light contrasting sharply against the darkness surrounding her. "Ethan," the child's voice whispered again. Was it a call for help? Or another trap? Time slowed, terror coiling in her stomach. Would she dare to enter? The shadows were closing in. She had to decide. Would she follow the light, risking everything, or face the dark at her back? With the growl now echoing all around her, she took a step toward the light, heart racing, knowing this choice could change everything. As she stepped toward the light, Sarah's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the sinister whispers that clawed at her mind. The beam beckoned, warm and inviting, contrasting with the oppressive chill of the darkness closing in behind her. She hesitated, feet glued to the floor, fear rooting her in place. "Ethan," she called again, the word a desperate plea that hung in the air. The shadows around her pulsed like living creatures, and the laughter rose again, louder and more chaotic, blending with the whispers, a cacophony of dread that threatened to pull her down into the abyss. Sarah's heart raced with desperation. Was it a trick, a cruel bait to lure her deeper into despair? Or was her brother waiting on the other side, trapped, crying for her assistance? She couldn't afford to lose him. He was all she had left. With a surge of defiance, she took a deep breath and forced herself forward, through the doorway that spilled light into the darkness. The moment she crossed the threshold, the weight of the shadows seemed to lift, the laughter fading into an eerie silence. The room beyond was dazzlingly bright, blinding her eyes momentarily. As her vision adjusted, she found herself in what looked like a small kitchen. The air was fresh, smelling of baked bread and warm spices. It felt impossibly normal, a stark contrast to the terror she had just escaped. But something was off. The kitchen was pristine, untouched, yet eerily empty. The cheerful decor and sunlight streaming through the windows seemed almost mocking. Where were the people? Where was Ethan? "Ethan," she called again, louder this time, her voice echoing through the empty space, desperation lacing every syllable. No answer. She stepped further in, eyes scanning the room. A wooden table stood at the center, perfectly set for a meal, plates, glasses, and silverware arranged as if waiting for guests. In the corner, a high chair was pushed forward, its tiny, bright red cushion a haunting reminder of a child's presence. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine. This place felt wrong. It was too serene, too perfect, as if it had been arranged for a picture but hadn't known the heartache that often accompanied family dinners. Suddenly, a sound pulled her from her thoughts. A soft giggle, childlike and cheerful, drifted from the hallway just outside the kitchen. Her breath caught in her throat. "Ethan," she whispered, filled with a renewed sense of hope. Without thinking, she darted toward the sound, each step a race against the fear trying to settle back in. The hallway was narrow, lined with cheerful paintings of landscapes and smiling children, a twisted facade. Each step felt like a trap door might open beneath her. She rounded a corner, heart in her throat, and came to an abrupt halt. Before her stood a small sunlit room filled with toys, stuffed animals piled high, and a small table covered in crayons and drawings. And sitting in the middle, with his back to her, was a child. "Ethan," she croaked, voice trembling with hope and fear. But the child didn't turn around. Instead, he picked up a crayon and began to draw, absorbed in his own little world. "Ethan," she called desperately again, taking a cautious step forward. The boy continued to scribble, oblivious. Her heart sank. "Please, it's me, Sarah," she cried, moving closer. Just then the child turned his head, but it wasn't Ethan's face she found staring back at her. His eyes were dark, voids where light should be, and the smile that stretched across his face was wide and unnatural. Too wide, too joyful for comfort. "Come play with us," he sang, his voice lilting and hollow, sending chills cascading down her spine, piercing through her. Frozen in place, Sarah felt the shadows enveloping her return with a vengeance, feeding on her horror. She could sense their claws, their hatred, growing closer behind her, and then the walls began to close in, each painted smile on the walls morphing into grotesque grins. "Will you stay with us forever?" the child asked, his voice echoing with malicious glee. "Help!" Sarah screamed, her voice breaking as panic surged back. She turned abruptly only to find herself facing the gathering darkness once again. As they moved closer, she realized she had to break free. Heart racing, she pounded against the walls, frantically searching for a way out, but the suffocating darkness pressed against her, whispering promises of despair. Could she fight her way through? Or was this place determined to keep her trapped, just like Ethan? Desperation coursed through her veins as she braced herself for the oncoming storm. What more would she have to sacrifice to save her brother? Then more laughter filled the air, echoing, overwhelming. Sarah closed her eyes, preparing to plunge into the churning void. Would she ever find Ethan, or would she too become a part of this twisted play? Her breath quickened. She felt the darkness reach for her, fingers squeezing tighter. "Once you're in, you can never leave," whispered the voice, curling around her like smoke. Would she surrender to despair, or would there still be a flicker of hope? The darkness closed in, wrapping around Sarah like a suffocating blanket. She could almost feel the whispers of the unseen shadows brushing against her skin, taunting her with words she couldn't understand. A part of her wanted to give in, to let the weight of despair pull her down. But another part, the part still desperately clinging to Ethan, fought back with everything it had. With her heart pounding, she turned in circles, searching for a way to escape. The walls felt like they were closing in, the bright colors from the cheerful paintings leering at her with sadistic pleasure. Despair clawed at her mind like 1,000 razor-sharp nails. "Find the light!" a voice echoed from deep within her, a determination ignited by her love for her brother. There, a thin beam of light flickered at her feet, a glimmer of hope amidst the shadows. She lunged toward it, the darkness hissing and howling behind her, as if furious at her defiance. But the moment she reached the beam, it flickered, sputtered, and vanished, leaving her plunged into the depths of the blackness. A piercing shriek erupted from the walls, reverberating through her very bones. Sarah gasped, phobic sweat coating her palms. "Ethan," she cried again, desperation turning her voice raw. The emptiness echoed back, mocking her. Ahead, a door materialized, just a few feet away, framed by that same radiant light. It shimmered invitingly, a portal to safety. Or perhaps another trap. Her instinct screamed against it, but she couldn't let fear guide her. She had to believe that beyond it lay something, anything, but this nightmarish charade. With her breath hitching in her throat, she bolted toward the door. As she yanked it open, light flooded around her, enveloping her in its warmth. But the moment she stepped through, she was no longer outside the horror. She was still inside it, a different room but with the same syrupy sweetness of deceit. A nursery sprawled before her, the walls painted in soft pastels, adorned with fluffy clouds and gentle animals. Sunlight poured through the window, illuminating cribs and plush toys, creating a false sense of comfort. It was a child's paradise, but it didn't feel right. "Ethan," she whispered, dread creeping in. A sudden crash resounded from one corner, snapping her head to the left. Fear clenched her heart. The room felt alive, twisted by something sinister lurking beneath its surface. "Mommy!" a voice called, high-pitched and familiar yet grotesquely out of place. The sound made her blood run cold. She rushed towards the source, desperation driving her forward, but as she neared the farthest crib, the shadows coiled tighter. The once adorable nursery began to morph. The clouds overhead darkened, swirling like a storm ready to rage. "What are you doing here?" hissed a chilling voice from above. The shadow of a figure loomed, its eyes gleaming with a wicked light, watching her with an insatiable hunger. "Let me go!" she shouted, trying to shield herself from the encroaching dread. As Sarah stumbled backward, the figure leaned closer, its form shifting. Disfigured faces appeared within the shadows, a ghoulish gallery of trapped souls. Each visage bore expressions of agony, mouths wide open as if they were screaming, but no sound came out. It was a tableau that fueled her terror, the agony palpable and haunting. "Once you enter, you can never leave," the figure echoed, its voice a cold whisper that chilled her to the core. Just then, a small hand reached out from the shadows, tiny, delicate, and altogether too familiar. "Sarah, help me." Ethan's voice broke through, filled with panic. Her heart surged at the sound. "Ethan!" she cried out, running toward the hand reaching through the blackness. "Hang on, I'm coming." Was it really him? Was this the moment she longed for? The shadows writhed with rage, wrapping around her legs, tugging her backward, trying to pull her away. "Don't let them take you. Stay with me," Ethan begged, his silhouette struggling against the tug of the darkness. But the grip of the abyss was growing stronger, shadows whispering lies in her ears. "Leave her," they crooned, venomous and alluring. Sarah's heart raced as she fought against the intangible claws consuming her. All that mattered was Ethan, whatever the cost. With one last desperate effort, she plunged forward, reaching for her brother, only to feel a rush of icy air as the small hand slipped away. "Mommy!" the voice cried again, fading into an ominous echo as shadows cackled around her. She was losing him, but was he ever really there? Or was this just another cruel trick of the darkness? Panic clenched, squeezing the breath from her lungs. In that moment, she realized she had to make a choice, a decision that could mean the difference between losing everything or fighting to reclaim the light. What kind of sacrifice was she willing to make to save Ethan, her brother trapped within the clutches of the shadows? The walls creaked ominously as the whispers resumed, more insistent now, drawing closer, begging her to surrender. Could she muster the strength to face her deepest fears, or would the darkness claim them both? The shadows stirred, a thick, suffocating veil of darkness that seeped into Sarah's very being. Panic burned in her chest, a frantic pulse as she gripped her hair, trying to anchor herself to sanity. This nursery wasn't a sanctuary, it was a warped prison. "Ethan?" she screamed, the name a desperate prayer through clenched teeth. They were laced with fear, the echoes haunting her. Shadows quivered, the ghoulish faces shifting, contorting as if feeding off her dread. She could feel them inching closer, filling the space with icy breath that tingled against her skin. But she had to take a stand. She couldn't let despair consume her. Determination ignited from deep within as she recalled Ethan's voice, a lifeline that cut through the suffocating darkness. "Find the light," she murmured, her breath trembling as she searched again, scanning every corner of the twisted nursery. A hint of brightness flickered once more, hidden beyond layers of despair. She lunged toward it, propelling herself through the hostile air. The shadows hissed, their wrath palpable, a cacophony of whispers loud and insistent. "You can't escape. You belong to us. Shut up!" she shouted back, defiance coursing through her veins. The light was there. She could almost grasp it. She bounded towards the trapdoor, concealed behind a faded quilt hanging on the wall, a mere illusion fashioned to hide her salvation. With shaking hands, she pulled at the quilt, tearing it down. The light glimmered, urging her forward like a beacon, pleading with her to trust in its glow. She threw herself through the opening, swallowing hard against the closing darkness behind her. The air shifted as she fell into a narrow corridor, dimly lit and lined with warped mirrors. The reflections stared back at her, each one twisted, contorted into nightmarish faces that leered with malevolent glee. She stumbled backward, her heart racing, each beat a countdown. They mirrored her fears, her sense of hopelessness, echoing everything she wished to deny. "Ethan," she called again, her voice a raw whisper through gritted teeth. No reply, only the sounds of soft laughter echoed back, mingling with the darkness that taunted her. Desperation clawed at her throat. "I won't leave you," she pled, her voice rising, spilling over with anguish and resolve. They could not keep her from her brother. She would push through. She had to. As she pressed on, the corridor twisted further, its walls narrowing like the jaws of a beast about to swallow her whole. Her breath quickened, panic biting at the edges of her mind. She could feel the nightmares creeping in, tendrils of uncertainty brushing against her consciousness. Suddenly, a flash of light erupted ahead, a silhouette standing at the end of the corridor. Her chest tightened as she realized it was the figure from before, the ominous shadow, grinning widely now, triumphant. Its eyes bulged with sickening delight. "You can't save him," it taunted, the words slithering through her like poison. "He was never here. Just a bait for your pathetic heart." "No," she screamed, anger boiling over. That couldn't be true, she wouldn't accept it. Just as she turned to run, another voice broke through, piercing the air, a familiar, childlike laughter echoing from beyond the darkness. "Help me, Sarah." Ethan's voice, small yet strong, crackled through the shadows. It fueled her with a wild, fervent hope as she lunged forward. "I'm coming!" Every heartbeat thudded against her ribcage as she raced toward the sound, defiance mingling with desperation in a heady mix. Shadows clawed at her again, their whispers returning, taunting her, begging her to turn back. "Join us. It's easier in the dark." But she pressed on, ignoring the grasping gloom. Each step took her closer to the light, closer to her brother's voice. As she broke into another room, brighter now yet still steeped in unsettling stillness, shadows danced around her, swirling with glee. In the center a choice loomed, two paths, each with an oppressive tension thrumming in the air. Would she take the left and follow the laughter, or the right, which led deeper into the darkness? The choice hung heavy before her, threatening to unravel everything she fought for. Would she make the right decision, or was this the final trap to ensnare her? The ticking clock in her mind raced towards a resolution, one she feared would devour them both. The choice blared in her mind like a siren. Left. Laughter. Right. Darkness. Both options felt like a noose tightening around her throat. She gnashed her teeth together, each second sapping her courage. But then, like a beacon, Ethan's laughter washed over her, sweet and sad. She turned left, heart pounding like a drum. Each step sent jolts of adrenaline through her veins. The laughter rang clearer now, a melody of innocence wrapped in danger. But at the back of her mind, shadows swarmed, whispering, "You chose wrong. You chose wrong." The corridor opened to a room splashed with pale light, a surreal oasis amidst the lurking dread. Toys littered the floor, stuffed bears, dolls with hollow eyes, and toy blocks scattered as if they'd been abandoned mid-play. It felt wrong, too cheerful, like a mask hiding horrors beneath. Yet that didn't stop her. She had to find Ethan. "Ethan, where are you?" she shouted, hoping each call would pull him from whatever abyss held him captive. A gust of wind shivered through the room, scattering a dozen toys to the corners. The laughter faded to silence, replaced by a heavy tension that thickened the air. "Sarah," a voice whispered from nowhere, and yet it was everywhere. It tickled the nape of her neck, danced under her skin, a touch she didn't want. Her stomach dropped, and she turned in a slow circle. "Stop playing. This isn't funny." Isn't it? The laughter returned, echoing from the shadows that clung to the walls. The shadows bent and warped as if alive, their tendrils reaching out, longing for her warmth. Don't you want to join us, Sarah? Panic erupted, sparked by an ancient fear. She shivered, stepping back. No, I'm not afraid of you. Oh, but you should be. You've made your choice. The laughter crescendoed into a shriek, shaking the very ground beneath her feet. It felt as if the nursery walls were alive, watching her with ravenous anticipation. With fierce breaths, she scanned the room, searching for any sign of her brother. A sudden flicker caught her eye. Something small and white tucked beneath the pile of toys. With renewed hope, she lunged forward. As her fingers grazed the object, the laughter stilled abruptly, replaced by a breathless whisper. You'll regret this. She pulled it free. A doll, porcelain and beautiful, an eerie smile painted on its face. At first, she thought it was just a doll, but then she noticed the words inscribed along its porcelain arm. Sister, forever. A chill washed through her and she dropped it, but the darkness surged forward as if the doll had summoned them. The laughter returned, mocking her resolve, each peal more wicked than the last. You think he's waiting for you? He's already ours. Shut up, she screamed, the sound reverberating against the walls. Fear twisted her insides as every shadow pulsed towards her, hungry for her despair. She dashed for the exit. Dread clung to her skin like ice, but as she reached the door, it slammed shut. A surface of darkness sealed it like a tomb, trapping her. The shadows coiled tighter, murmuring with delight. Your brother will be lost forever. You've sealed your fate. Her pulse thundered in her ears. No, she cried out. I will find him. I won't give up. The shadows shrieked in laughter, devouring her voice in the plummet of silence. Suddenly, a rumble echoed through the ground, sending shivers up her spine. Above her, the ceiling began to crack, fissures leaking shadows down like black rain. Each crack whispered secrets of dread, tales of despair. The walls inched closer. Tentacles of darkness wrapped around her mind. Had she really lost? Was Ethan still out there? Or was she merely racing further into the void? As panic threatened to consume her, a final whisper cut through the chaos. Time's running out, Sarah. And with that, everything fell into pitch blackness, just as she felt a tug on her arm. A familiar, pleading grip. Sarah, help me. The cold void expanded, wrapping her in chilling embrace. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe, but the voice was there, pulling her closer. A final question hung in the air. Would she chase it and face the darkness, or let it swallow her whole? The shadows pulsed, their sinister intentions coiling tighter as Sarah clung to the voice of her brother. Ethan! She cried, determined to follow the sound that resonated deep within her heart. The darkness swirled around her like a living entity, but she wouldn't let it steal her joy, her hope. Where are you? She shouted, her voice breaking the silence, desperately seeking any way to reach him. Heart racing, she moved through the void, every instinct urging her forward. A faint light flickered in the distance, illuminating a familiar outline. Ethan! She yelled, sprinting toward the glimmer. With every step, the shadows recoiled, hissing as they unraveled their grip just a bit. But she wouldn't waste a breath. She had come too far to lose him now. Mommy? His voice sparked against her heart like a flame in the dark. Help me! She rushed faster, every jolt of her feet propelling her through the suffocating blackness. The light grew stronger, clearer, revealing a doorframe before her, just beyond the threshold of the shadows. I'm coming, she called again, pushing herself harder, willing her body to move faster, determined to burst through the lingering abyss that held him captive. Just as she reached the door, the shadows lashed out, pulling at her limbs like invisible chains. Hot panic shot through her veins. No! She shouted, digging her heels into the ground, refusing to give in. In that moment, the love for her brother clashed against the darkness's grip, and her determination shattered the suffocating hold. Gathering every ounce of strength, Sarah broke free, surged through the doorway and collided with brilliant light. The shadows screeched behind her, their frustrated wails echoing eerily through the night as she threw herself into the warmth and safety of the room. With trembling hands, she looked around and gasped. Sunlight flooded the space, illuminating a well-loved, cozy nursery filled with familiar toys and a gentle breeze that danced through the open window. It felt almost too perfect, but that didn't matter. Ethan was near. "Ethan!" she called out again, her voice high with desperation and hope. The sound echoed through the room and she turned, her eyes searching everywhere. Suddenly she spotted him seated in a tiny chair tucked in the corner. He looked back at her, eyes wide, filled with pure, innocent love. "Mommy!" he shouted, jumping up and running into her open arms. Relief crashed over her in waves, overwhelming and beautiful. She hugged him tightly, holding back the tears that threatened to spill. "Oh, Ethan, I thought I lost you." "Where were you?" he asked innocently, his small voice breaking her heart into pieces. Her eyes softened as she bent down, cupping his cherubic face in her hands. "I'm here now. I'll always find you, I promise." But the promise hung uneasily in her heart. The shadows were still out there, lurking, waiting to strike again. Whatever held them captive in that dark world wasn't gone. It was watching, plotting. "We have to go, Ethan. Now," she urged, gripping his little hand tight, and led him to the door leading out of the nursery. As they stepped through, the ominous laughter faded, but an unsettling chill lingered in the air. "They're still coming," she whispered, barely believing it herself. "Mommy," Ethan looked up at her, a seriousness settling in his features. "They say we can play forever." "We're done playing," Sarah replied firmly. "No more games, let's get out of here." Together they made their way down a narrow hall lined with shadows, walking away from the light that felt like a sudden abyss, knowing their battle was far from over. Fear prickled against Sarah's skin, but with Ethan by her side, it didn't feel hopeless. Suddenly, the shadows writhed about them violently as they dashed, tugging at their souls, screaming for them to turn back. "Join us," they hissed, their sinister dance leaving stains of dread. "You can never escape." "Hold on tight," Sarah shouted, refusing to yield. With determination, she pushed forward, stepping through an archway that promised a way out. Bursting into the glow of dusk, they found themselves standing outside the house, the nightmare behind them. Sarah felt the tension ease ever so slightly as the shadows hissed in frustration, struggling to resurface but ultimately failing. "Mommy, we did it," Ethan beamed, his smile bright amidst the fading chaos. "We did," Sarah murmured, wrapping her arms around him, grounding herself in the warmth of the moment and the reality of their escape. Yet a chill swept through the air. She could still feel the chilling whispers at the edges of her consciousness, swarming like dark bees. This fight wasn't over, it was just the beginning. But together, they could face anything. In the serene dusk light, she promised her heart to Ethan with deep conviction. "I'll protect you no matter what. We will get through this together." As they moved across the threshold of the place filled with horrors, a new resolve bloomed within her. They would fight whatever darkness awaits, one day at a time. They were free, but the journey to reclaim their peace was just beginning. So they walked hand in hand toward the horizon, where light battled dark, a testament of love prevailing against the odds. As they faded into the embrace of a fresh dawn, Sarah knew. The shadows may linger, but they no longer held the game. And thus she whispered softly, "We are free." In that moment, Sarah felt the light breathe into her being, wrapping around every inch of her heart, a promise made to break the cycle of despair. This was their life now, their journey, filled with shadows but also filled with hope. Now it's your turn. If you don't want to miss the next thrilling story like this one, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. It's the moment to show your support and be a part of this incredible journey. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. And hey, I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Let's get the conversation going. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's build this community together where real fans come alive.